Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, where bold conversations meet meaningful change. Today's guest, Jessica Lyonford, best-selling author of the Happy Leader Playbook, leadership coach, workplace consultant, and founder of Project More Happy. Jessica is redefining happiness through her science-backed framework, the 8 Pillars of Happiness. She empowers women and organizations to lead with more purpose, resilience, and joy. If you're feeling burned out, stuck in someone else's version of enough, or ready to lead from a place of alignment and well-being, this conversation is for you. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here on your show today.
Thank you so much. I am excited to have you here and to really dive into this conversation. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, perfect. Before we dive into your professional journey, if you could describe your life to this point in one word, what would that word be and why?
Surprise.
Ooh, tell us more.
Surprise. Because if you had told 5-year-old me, 10-year-old me, 20-year-old me that I would be a happiness coach and consultant at this point in my life, I would have laughed in your face. This journey, even to get here, has surprised me every single day, the twists and the turns. And I think that's what's made it joyful. It's also what's made it hard and has given me a lot of life lessons. But I like the surprise of it all. I delight in the surprise of it all.
Nice. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that evolution of where this started to where you are now.
Yeah, it started with me as a kid being raised to be a people pleaser, to fit into a lot of boxes that I don't think I was ever comfortable fitting inside, but I didn't know I could say no to them. I didn't know I could say that box isn't for me. To being raised thinking that status means everything. And I say all that with I think it was in good intentions. It just gave me a narrative that I had to completely unlearn in my adult life to understand happiness for myself. So because I followed these expectations and paths of others, I ended up choosing a career in advertising that I was really good at. People told me to go into it because they knew I'd be good at it. Again, all good intentions. But it was a complete value misalignment. And I had never stopped to question any of it. So I ended up really young, in mid-20s in a high-profile career with the paycheck that I don't think most people in their 20s should get, running teams, leading international ad campaigns, going on commercial shoots all the time. A job that most people from the outside looked at me and said, she's successful. She should be happy. And me on the inside going every day, what is wrong with me? I'm broken. I don't see joy in any of this. And waking up and keep putting on that face of performance, of pleasing everyone else who was saying this is what life is about, to finally me burning out and not being able to sustain it and going, okay, if I'm broken, I need to figure out how to fix myself.
Yeah.
That journey was hard and bumpy and is still a journey that I'm on. I was very fortunate that at that point I had found a partner who gave me space to do the work of figuring it out. I've always been a curious person. And so I just dove into research. I said, okay, if this isn't happiness, what is happiness? And at that time, the field of positive psychology was still really young. I mean, it's still young today, right? We're
it is
30 years into it.
It's still young. Yes.
It's in its infancy and we learn new things every single day still.
Absolutely.
But I looked out when I was trying to figure all this out, that research and evidence and science was there, which previous generations, they didn't have access to that, right? And so I nerded out because that's what I do. I read everything I could. I read behavioral science. I read a bunch of different spirituality books. I was raised Christian. I'm still Christian, but I studied Buddhism for years. I love the Dalai Lama's philosophy on so much. He's science backed, he's evidence based, right? I needed to study all of this to try to figure out how to dig myself out of this hole. And what happened is I started seeing patterns over and over again in all the different research across all the different topics and subject materials. And so I started making notes, and the same 8 themes kept coming up again and again. And those turned into my 8 pillars of happiness. But I just started workshopping and living and experimenting with these different things on my own terms, and really redesigned my life in a way that allowed me to create the happiness I needed when I needed it. And that allows me to, when life throws me a curveball, and it has many times since I've started this journey, I can bounce back a lot quicker because I know the skill sets that I need to lean into to get back to my more positive energy spaces.
Oh, I love that journey and that evolution. Tell me a bit more about some of the adversity that shaped your idea and definition of happiness.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I'm working on a couple projects around this right now because I think so much of it is cultural.
Mm-hmm.
We are taught that happiness comes from external places, and we're taught that, the more you have, or the more money you make, or the relationships you have in your life, the more relationships you have, which is actually false. Quality usually trumps quantity in most areas of our life. And that's, why we struggle so much in the social media sphere right now. We don't have the quality, the depth. We have a lot of really surface level, right? But I worked in really toxic environments. Advertising is a toxic culture. I had bosses that the first time I ever presented to a creative director as an associate, he slid a shot of tequila across the table at me and said I wasn't allowed to speak until I took the shot. Now, when you're fresh out of school, what do you do in that situation, right?
Yeah, you feel like you have to take the shot to have a chair at the table.
Right. I had another boss who bought everyone's loyalty. And if you told her she was doing something that was unkind or unhelpful, or that someone else on the team was suffering because of some structure set up that's not supportive to them, you got put on the shame list and you would be shamed across the global company. And so I had to navigate and learn these things, like how to bounce back from them. And I was really bad at it at first. Mm-hmm. I spent a big part of my life during that time at bars drinking myself to numbness, because your brain isn't equipped to constantly deal with microaggressions and not work through them, to constantly have to be in that fight flight mode without ever working through the entire cycle to get back to where you're not stressed. And so I ended up carrying all of this stress and cortisol in my body nonstop, to where I was unhealthy. I was not sleeping. Still, I know when I'm stressed because I don't sleep. And so I had to learn how to take care of myself and pour into myself. And that required actually doing the deep work of reflecting and figuring out who I was, which I've come to find out in all the work I do now. It's not a skill set we teach people how to do, how to reflect and sit in stillness and figure out who they are at their core so that they can design a life that works for them. But I had to do that through the messiness of toxic workplaces, bad relationships. Now, the blessing, the good side I see of all this is it gave me a lot of tools that I now get to share and gift to other people earlier in the journey.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to take a few steps back here because you mentioned so many different things that I want to touch on here. So you were in a toxic, or maybe even multiple toxic workplaces, right? You have different kinds of bosses. You were making a lot of money for somebody so young. Growing up, we've all been conditioned to think A, B, or C, and to be people pleasers, right?
Yeah.
to lessen our own voice because we are people pleasers,
Yeah.
to say yes all the time because we are people pleasers, to understand that we are young. So the onus is on us to be at that table, learn at that table, and not have a voice many times, right?
Yeah.
And so here you are. This is mounting. This is all getting packed into you. And here you are trying to do the self work, the reflection while you're in this toxic workplace with these microaggressions.
Mhm.
That's tough. That's
Yeah.
really tough.
Yeah.
However, through all of it, you had that tenacity, you had that resiliency because you were doing that work. You did come through it. And
Yeah.
now you can help others by way of coaching, mentoring through those 8 pillars of happiness. That's a lot. That is quite a few layers to unlayer, unpack, and rebuild ourselves. And one of those first steps is recognizing your own emotions because many times we are so outside of our own emotions, we don't even know how to name them, recognize them because we've been taught all these things to forget about them,
Mhm.
not understand them, to dismiss them because we're pleasing others.
Yeah.
So much so that we want to keep our jobs, we want to fit in with our families, we want to do all these things that are so important to us that we do value.
Yeah.
But how do we do it on our terms? So tell us more about the 8 pillars of happiness, because I'm sure through all of those experiences, this is where this was built from,
Yes.
including your research. So tell us more.
I want to say too, it was hard doing it all
Yeah.
at once. It culminated in a really severe case of postpartum depression after I had my first kid.
Mhm.
And so my whole world kind of like just came to a screeching halt, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
My husband had been laid off a month before our first kid was due. I was freelancing at the time because I was burnt out. So I had to take a step back. But that meant 2 weeks after I gave birth, I was back at work freelancing because we needed money. So it was a lot. And so I was very motivated, even though it was heavy. I was very motivated to dig myself out of that. For me, who was clearly suffering, for my husband, who, when he got laid off, as a lot of men do, and we don't talk about, went into a severe depression because your work is your identity when you're male, right? So when you lose your work, you lose your identity. And then on top of it, having a son now that I wanted a much better world and life for.
Yeah.
So I was very motivated to figure this out, to crack the code, if you will. I wanted to crack the code.
Let me just take a step in here for a second
Yeah.
and let you know that just recently I was going to one of my PT sessions and I developed a relationship with some of the folks that I go there, who are the physical therapists.
Yeah.
And one of them is married to a nurse, and she is going through something really similar. She had postpartum depression. She's pregnant again, and any day due. But between babies, she was working as a nurse at a hospital, as a director, in a situation where she was being bombarded by these microaggressions. So she started being late to work. She started trying to avoid the people that she was exposed to who were doing these microaggressions towards her, right? She ends up getting fired. So not only now does she have postpartum depression, she's also pregnant again. She's just gotten fired. She's a good nurse, but it's like this speaks to what you're talking about. And she's trying to do the self work. She's trying to live a life. She's trying to do something that she loves and is passionate about and helping others. But in all of that, she's having a hard time taking care of her own well being as a nurse,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And working in a place where we're talking about physical and mental health, right? So this still goes on today, and there's such a need. All right, go on.
Okay, the 8 pillars. I love this too because we started this 8 pillar conversation with you
Yes.
saying we don't understand what we feel a lot of the time. So
Yes.
feeling is one of the 8 pillars of happiness. So the 8 pillars themselves are the 8 skills that the more we practice them, the more we are in control and able to design and create more happiness in our lives. So I like to liken it to, because I played basketball as a kid, and sports analogies somehow still work here. When you want to become a better basketball player, you don't just wake up and say, I want to be a great basketball player, right? The same thing with happiness. You can't say, I'm going to be happy, even though we have all those signs and mantras that say, just choose happiness, just be happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it actually works. So if you want to be a better basketball player, you have to learn the different skill sets of basketball. You have to learn how to get better at layups and how to do 3-pointers and how to shoot free throws and dribble and pass and all of those different skills. And happiness works the same way. And so there are 8 skills that when I was doing the research, when I was experimenting, when I was working through all of this, these 8 skills kept coming up. And those are the 8 pillars of happiness. And they are confidence, because confidence is a practice. We can get better at it. Authenticity, showing up and owning our voice is a practice. Living aligned to our values. Purpose. People get scared when I say purpose is a happiness skill because we think of life's purpose as a default, but purpose is just having goals and things that we are drawn to doing each and every day. So purpose doesn't need to be, my purpose is to cure cancer. It's my purpose is to help people. Now, how am I going to choose to do that today? That gives us something to drive for that's meaningful. Compassion is one of the pillars. Compassion encapsulates both for other people, but more importantly, for ourselves. So self-compassion, which is a skill that everyone needs more practice in. I tend to think, even though we don't necessarily see it out in the world, we are much more compassionate to other people still than we are to ourselves. Mm-hmm. Gratitude is probably the most well-known, most published of the 8 skills of happiness. You have your gratitude journals, your gratitude practices, but gratitude is really important for our happiness. And it allows us to relive experiences and take our body back to the same physiological responses that bring us joy again and again. Optimism, which is another that I think the world needs much more optimism. But when we practice optimism for ourselves, we're better able to solve problems and get ourselves out of those dark, hard moments because we can see a way forward. We can find a way out. Mm-hmm. Curiosity, which is my favorite pillar, even though you're not supposed to have favorites. I'm naturally curious, so it's easy for me, which is why it's my favorite. I can default to it. It's the pillar that I was practicing in those hard moments that allowed me to crack the code and figure it out. Curiosity, learning, always expanding, going to the edge of your comfort zone and pushing yourself to be a better person today than yesterday. That's the practice of curiosity. And then, as I started out with, feeling is the 8th skill. It is everyone's least favorite because it is the most uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to sit with the hard feelings. And so that's why we tend to numb ourselves instead of going to those hard places. But feelings, it's really important. Feelings are just messages from our body to pay attention to things. So feelings are not good or bad inherently. Like being sad is not a bad thing. Being sad is your body saying, we need to pay attention to something. Something is asking for us to give it attention and energy. And we get to decide how to move forward with that. Same with anger or fear. They're just messages that are telling ourselves to pay attention. And so when we're numbing it, when we're avoiding feeling, when we're not practicing, that's where we get into these lives where we're stuck, where we're numb, where we don't feel attached to the world around us.
Yeah. I love those pillars. They're also important. And there's so much that I could touch on here, yet we only have, so many minutes here. But one of the things, as you said, feelings, emotions, they are not bad. But what I find many times too is people will generalize or catastrophize and say everything is horrible.
Right.
It never works out for me. Like those type of messages. And then you're feeding your brain and you're feeding your spirit those messages about everything always, those generalizations, that catastrophizing. So emotions aren't bad. Again, it's how those play out, right?
Right.
And again, it takes that practice, like you are dribbling, that long shot, that playbook of sorts, which leads me to the Happy Leader Playbook, your book. So
Yes.
Tell us, is it the book that talks about the 8 pillars? Is it the book that talks about this joy, this happiness?
Yes. So I have the book here because I always have copies.
Woohoo!
It's the Happy Leader Playbook. And it goes back to where we started this conversation. It does go through the 8 pillars of happiness, but it does it through the lens of how can we, no matter if we have a leadership title or not, because we are all leaders in different aspects of our lives. You might be leading your household. You might be leading a book club, leading in your neighborhood. We're all leaders in some capacity. But the book is about how to use the science of happiness, how to use the 8 pillars to supercharge energy, engagement, and impact, to build systems, to design environments that set yourself up to show up as your best and contribute at your fullest, but also how do we use the 8 pillars to set everyone else up to be able to contribute at their fullest too? Because I think that is where I see the gap between where the research is coming out right now. It's being served up to us as you go off and do these things and fix yourself. And I think the gap here and the next step, yes, I want to absolutely understand the pillars, practice them in my life, and create more happiness for me. But it is also my responsibility, and the way happiness works, because it is contagious, and my energy affects your energy, and then your energy affects the next person you talk to, right? It is our responsibility to design systems and environments that set everyone up for success. So how do we take the science of human flourishing? How do we take the science of happiness and actually build it to scale to create workplaces that set everyone up for success, that create communities for happiness? Like, I dropped this book off at my mayor's office yesterday, and inside I just wrote, Mayor, may your legacy here in this city be the happiness of your citizens.
I love that.
Because it is our job as humans, as interconnected species living on this planet together at this exact moment. It is our job to lift one another up and allow one another to show up as their best selves, to not fit in those boxes that I felt like I had to fit into, to not wear labels that don't set me up, to feel good, to succeed, to show up and use my light in a good way. So the book is about how do we do that to scale? How do we do that for us personally? And how do we do it to scale?
And what I love about that is it's introducing a new systems approach. It defines it. It talks about it. It has steps to creating that within communities, workplace communities. Brava. I love it, love it, love it. We've covered so much here. So as we come to the close of the interview, for listeners ready to make a shift but not sure where to begin, what's one happiness practice they can start using today?
Okay, so my favorite happiness practice, it's a practice in optimism. And it is when I wake up and get out of bed each morning, and you can do it right now too. So don't wait till tomorrow morning. You claim that today is going to be a good day for some reason. So you say, today is going to be a great day because I'm going to go on this podcast for an interview and I'm going to share the science of happiness with others. Or it might be, today is going to be a great day because I'm going to have lunch with a coworker I really like, or because I'm going to, take my son to soccer practice. Whatever it is, choose one thing that's going to happen that day that you know is going to be energy giving. Claim your good day. And what this does is it is hacking your brain. You're telling your brain it's going to be a good day. So now every interaction you have the rest of the day, your brain is looking for proof points to tell you, oh yeah, it's a good day. Look at this over here. It's a great day. Do you hear the birds singing? You're telling your brain to prove to you that it's going to be a great day. So it takes 2 seconds to say today's going to be a great day because of X. And the rest of the day, the brain's working in your favor to point out all the reasons that it's a good day for you.
What a great tip to leave us with. Thank you so much, Jessica, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
You can follow Jessica Lyonford on Instagram and LinkedIn and at www.jessicalyonford.com. Check out her podcast, The Project More Happy Podcast, and you can check out her book, The Happy Leader Playbook, on Amazon.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.